Hey everybody, have you ever wondered why it is you quit? I wrote an article recently called it was going to be called The Quitter's Spell. I had an original iteration of it that was not exactly accusatory, but a very different tone, a different voice. And I rewrote several times, turned it into How to Quit Quitting, but I talk about the quitter's spell within it, which is this concept that people cast a spell over themselves through conditioning, through, I call it a variety of potions, tinctures, and incantations, wherein they cast a spell over themselves to quit. And it's come from a place where I know when people are going to quit. I know when you're going to quit before you do. It wasn't anything I ever thought I'd get good at, or wanted to get good at, or even had hoped to get good at, or thought about even as something that's likely. But I can't predict when you're going to quit. I just know it. I learned it early on as something I intuited, and then over time as I began to evaluate, I found that there are actual demarcations in somebody's transition to giving up, quitting, or failing, or however you want to look at it, to the point where I actually knew about 90 days in advance when an employee would quit. I currently have a very high retention rate among clients. Depending on how you look at it, it's above 100% because people refer out. And over the long view, of course, people fall off, they move, they have developed to the point where working with an external accountability is not as valuable as it once was, what have you. And within that too, I can predict when somebody is going to quit, and sometimes I actually will tell them, I knew that you were going to quit, and they're usually confused because they think that they made that decision that day. They were long in pre-contemplation, contemplation, determination, and now into action for quitting, but it just occurred to them that they had made the decision today, and that's not the case. We make that determination sometimes even before we've begun a certain program or lifestyle alteration. We've already begun to quit before we started, which sounds kind of weird, I know, but if you read the article, that might create some more clarity for people. I didn't get into this in the article on how exactly one might manage themselves to break the quitter's spell. I do talk about how to become a little more self-aware, do a little more evaluation of what types of stories you're telling yourself and how you might be casting the spell, and then of course what kinds of stories you can tell yourself to break out of that. But I didn't dig that deep into what I want to talk about today, which is internal integrity, because this will let you control if, when, how you quit. Whether you do at all. It'll even recontextualize it so that you find, rather than out of disempowerment you quit, instead you determine that something is genuinely not a good fit at that point in time, at that level of investment or energy demand, and you cost-benefit analyze it, and from a very rational standpoint, rather than from an emotional fear, stress, freak out, you discontinue. You don't fail. You don't quit. There's just no such thing anymore. And this idea of internal integrity is really what makes all the difference. The example I give people is when you determine you want to do something new, or you say you want to do something new and you got to allocate more time for it, you'll set the alarm clock for a little bit earlier than usual. The next morning rolls around, the alarm clock goes off, and it's earlier than you're used to. Your current self doesn't listen to your former self, so you have a discontinuity of self, and you don't listen to yourself. You hit snooze. Now that seems like a benign, innocuous behavior, and in and of itself it is. But the ripple effect of the conditioning that occurs when you don't listen to yourself is ubiquitous, and it is this panopathy that goes throughout your life and throughout your decision-making systems. And you've got to start with those small things. It's sort of insane when I think about this, I talk about this with people, and they openly admit, and we all have misses. I mean, everybody's working on something with themselves, or at least trying to. And people have these misses in small things, meaning they don't listen to themselves about very easy, simple, basic decisions, behaviors in their lives, and then they write up these New Year's resolutions or goal setting, and these things are huge. They've built no toolkit to listen to themselves or have continuity of self and internal integrity with very easy things, and then somehow magically they're going to listen to themselves about something very difficult. And this again goes back to the conflation of excitement with sustainability. So people see a big goal, so it's exciting, so that seems like it can stir within you a better connection, commitment to change, but it doesn't work that way. You either listen to yourself all the time, or you listen to yourself none of the time. This isn't a halfway. You can't kind of listen to yourself. I'm actually reminded of a Seinfeld episode where Elaine's character is confronted with, I don't remember, some gentleman or some lady, maybe it was some lady about a job, and somehow the lady, or I think it was the lady, she's reminiscing about Jackie Onassis and Jackie's grace. And Elaine, to not be totally demoted in the exchange, offers up something like, well, I have a little bit of grace. And the lady retorts, my dear, you can't have a little bit of grace. You either have grace or you don't. And internal integrity is like that. It is a wildfire. You light a match, it takes over everything. When you don't listen to yourself in small things, you will not listen to yourself in big things. Forget about other people listening to you. So really, if you want to influence change beyond you, now you're totally SOL. You have to think about, how am I going to build internal integrity in little things? And there are practices to do this. Some of them are challenge convention. It may sound weird, but I do this with clients where I assign homework that has them challenge convention. I have them interact in an environment where we have an expectation about how one should behave, the types of things they should say, where we're pre-programmed to do X, Y, Z, and the homework assignment is, don't do X, Y, Z. Do PQR. Do BCD. Whatever. Do something else. Do subscript 1 X, Y, Z. And just those challenges of convention, small ones, then, lo and behold, you can now listen to yourself in something moderate, modest. And then when you get good at that, or great at that, let's just aim for proficient to begin with, then you can go to big things. There's a gentleman I met with recently with whom I was speaking, we had this exchange, and I was actually trying to open his eyes about this, because the way he has interacted with fitness has always been in this up and down, no progression. He gets excited, if he gets excited, does something that's maybe way different in extreme, falls off, and so on. And I was trying to tell him, yeah, that's what everybody does, and that's not the way forward. And he really couldn't, he couldn't even understand the words that were coming out of my mouth. Even when he was sort of agreeable, he just didn't get it. He just couldn't seem to wrap his head around. He had to listen to himself in small things first. He just wanted the exciting fix, which is what everybody, I've been talking about this is what everybody wants. It's never going to work that way, because you can get as excited as you want. The excitement will wane at some point in time, and if you have no internal integrity, you don't listen to yourself, you have no continuity of self, the previous person doesn't speak for the later person in you, you're not going to listen to yourself. This is meta skill number 1. Listen to yourself. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to Guru X. Don't listen to all kinds of authority out there. Think for yourself. But in order to change, start with the small things. Set the alarm for 2 minutes earlier than you're used to. Train yourself to interact in non-conventional ways, so you begin to rewire the brain. You lay down different neural pathways. We can measure this with fMRI with people, actually. When you think differently, you think differently. Start with those small things. Build the internal integrity. Otherwise, it is totally pie in the sky to be thinking you're going to do these big changes that require really listening to yourself in a harsh manner day after day after day after day, when you can't even do it from minute to minute right now with really easy things. So just start real small. Think small is what I want to encourage people to do with this. That's how you can quit quitting. That's how you can stop with the quit and get into, I evaluate rationally what I'm going to do, what I'm not going to do. This particular level of energy demand is too much. I have to reel back rather than just quit altogether. Really, that's usually what happens. Is you don't have foresight, you don't have internal integrity, and you get overwhelmed, and now it is just fear, pain, and depression, anxiety driving you. And even when you can muster a logical, coherent, cogent thought, it has no connection to your behaviors. So start small, real small. That is what I want to implore people to do. Start small. Build internal integrity. When you feel like the wheels are coming off, you're coming off the rails, everything's falling apart, return to fundamentals. And this is the fundamental meta skill. The fundamental skill, internal integrity. If you can listen to yourself, think of all the things you can do. I mean, just think about that. So try to imagine, contemplate what that would mean if when you say, I'm going to do X, you do it, no matter what it is. Oh my gosh, how powerful would that be, right? For everybody. If they say, I am going to complete this task, I am going to achieve this thing in life, and you don't give up. You don't quit. All of those memes and quotes about never giving up and staying strong and whatever else sound cool, but if you don't have internal integrity, they don't follow. They will automatically follow if you have internal integrity. That's where you want to begin to break the quitter spell. That's really the central, the fundamental skill or meta skill, if you want to think of it that way. Internal integrity. That is the answer.